Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto.
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name is Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our interviews with some of the most intelligent and influential people in the blockchain space help deliver you with value. And on this episode, we're joined by ZachXBT, an independent on-chain sleuth who is focused on exposing bad actors in the crypto space because he is tired of new people being burned in an unregulated industry. Zach's work is clearly being appreciated by the community as he has quickly grown his Twitter following to more than 270,000 followers. In this interview, Zach will be using a voice modifier to protect his identity. Zach, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Very excited for this. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on as well. And so you're our first non-doxed guest that we've had on, and we're okay to do that. Usually we wouldn't be okay with that, but we're okay given the line of work that you do and the fact that we want to make sure that your identity is being protected, your safety is there. But I guess the first question is, what made you interested to get involved in this kind of dangerous line of work of exposing scammers?
Yeah, of course. So I've been in the crypto cycles since like last one, 2017, 2018. That's when I first really started getting like the altcoins and stuff. And you remember all the ICOs, the mess that was. So I've invested in some of those and kind of just got burnt. And I was kind of blindly also following people on Twitter at the time as well. And kind of with that, it was like 2018 then, kind of bag held stuff on the way down. A lot of people did, learned the hard way, music stopped, kept at it with DeFi and stuff for until 2020 or so. Wasn't really on Twitter or anything, more just kind of lurking in Discord servers and stuff like that. But this time around, I noticed it started to all happen again. Like I saw a lot of scams, like there was more money flowing to the space this time around, of course. So we've seen like bridge hacks and stuff for $100 million. And I felt like this time around, it was way more amplified than before, at least with the scams. But a lot of it all felt too similar. So I began just become like frustrated with it all, just because nothing was really done. Like we had like in 2021, 2022, we saw the SEC and other government agencies around the world kind of go after a few individual projects. But like even then, it's very like random. It's never like, oh yeah, this is going to happen to this project. And it always takes a few years. Like you think it would be act a little quicker, but sometimes they're like still persecuting ICO scams from 2017 and 2022. So I kind of got frustrated with that and threw out a few threads on Twitter. And they kind of blew up. And over time, it just built into something more. What turned into kind of like a side thing became something I was very interested in. And just that's history.
Really interesting. And I think that just to kind of set the tone of this episode for our audience, what we're not trying to do with this episode is team up on any individual or project or anything along those lines. I think really the goal of what we're trying to do here is an education piece of hopefully those who are new to the space, they can avoid some of these scams or some of the information. So we're going to get into that in the future, but at a high level, kind of keeping that in mind, over the last year, since your Twitter account is really blowing up, since you've kind of put more time into this, what are some of the discoveries or the types of things that you've identified in terms of scams in the space?
Yeah, so I'll break it down a couple different categories I really noticed. First off, we have the influencers. Particularly in crypto, we see like non-sophisticated investors or retail really lean to some of these influencers and figures in the space. And unfortunately, they just like believe whatever these people say, even though sometimes their intentions are not the most pure. This crypto cycle around, like, it's grown in popularity, and they've gained hundreds of thousands of followers, and they're on Twitter, YouTube, even now Facebook groups. So that's kind of a big one for some of the less sophisticated investors. And then we also have, like, with projects and DeFi, we've had a lot of like just straight up rug pulls and stuff. There's been a lot of forks this time around. Like, we'll see a project and it gets easily forked. And then, like, with some of these, the teams don't really put as much effort into them. They just want to raise money, and they don't really have the intentions to build anything out. Yeah, it's another thing. With VC money, it's gone up tenfold this time around. So there's a lot of projects that don't really have the best intentions at mind. Like this one instance, I had a project, and they actually used the money to leverage trade, believe it or not, and they lost it all. And then, like, they lied to the investors. They confronted them again. They were like, "Hey, we lost it all gambling," and then they just disappeared. So that's like obviously on the one of the more worst examples I've seen, but we've seen just like projects that are not acting in the best interest of the holders and investors. And then we also have just VCs, kind of like everyone's become a VC this cycle, which is kind of weird. I guess like a lot of people made money, and VC, at least during the bull run, it's been very profitable, where you could just throw money at anything and you're getting like tenfold that. So we've really seen that as well. And then, of course, just in general, more recently, kind of NFTs have blown up this cycle as well. We've seen a lot of just rug pulls there, where people just, same thing, like they say they're going to build something and then they just disappear. Typically, it's like an anonymous team. No one really knows them. They steal like work. They just use artwork from Fiverr, or perhaps, let's say, they actually steal the artwork from somewhere else, and then they like just rug pull on day one. We've seen that as well. And then more recently, just phishing has ramped up an insane amount with NFTs. We've seen like Bored Ape Yacht Club holders it's kind of like they get memed on Twitter, of course, but like they're, of course, like one of the most high profile NFTs. So I guess like that's why people rag on them for it. But we've seen them get fished out a lot, and a lot of other projects as well, whether it's the Discord or more recently Twitter's being compromised. So this time around, we've seen a bunch of different types of ways people have gotten wrecked.
And there's no doubt takes a lot of your time, all the sleuthing and the work that you put into this. You've also grown a huge following. Is this something that is still just a passion project of yours, or has this become a full-time job?
I'd say it's become a full-time job since last September, October. Ever since then, I've really like turned it into full gear, high gear, like pretty much nonstop. And it gets tough. Like, I'm the one that's managing messages, doing research, and also engaging on Twitter. So it's very hard to balance everything at all. And then also still like find time to be able to chat with others when it's non-sleuthing or stuff like that. So like even then, like I used to trade more, and now I don't really have time for that. So it's really consumed pretty much everything.
And in terms of your process, so you talked about sleuthing there, like how do you identify these things? Are people tipping you off of certain projects that you should maybe look into? Are you discovering those all yourself? Like really get in depth with this answer of what is your process for finding these scams and rug pulls? Yeah.
So I would just break it down into two different ways. So the first one, of course, is my own research. And the second one, of course, is if people tip me off. So at the start, of course, it was all myself doing all the research, everything like that. Everyone's like, oh, you're just doing it for clout or things like that. So at the start, it was more of me just kind of going for some of these influencer figureheads, you could say, where I felt like they were maybe misguiding their followers in some way or some capacity. So what I would do is really how it works is when it's an influencer, at least, it's kind of seeing what content they're tweeting about, maybe posting on YouTube. A lot of times they have a public ENS address or wallet, and using that, let's say they have a public one, then I can go to Etherscan, plug that in, and see what they're buying. A lot of times they use that as their main wallet for all like the ICO pre-sales or stuff they're talking about. Let's say if that happens, then it's very easy for me to just see, oh, they did X, Y, they were dumping tokens, and oh, look, if I go to Twitter on this date, wow, they match. So it's very much just using Etherscan like that. Of course, not all influencers are that, I guess, naive. A lot of them use alt wallets. Like I know you guys, myself, a bunch of different wallets. So, but sometimes anyhow, I use tools like breadcrumbs where I can map out the transaction flow, and I'll see like, oh, the influencer wallet, they would have a lot of transactions to this other wallet. This is more than likely their alt wallet just because of the vast amount of money they're sending to that one. Or let's say sometimes they own a valuable NFT. If they own like a Bored Ape Yacht Club and they transfer that NFT to another wallet, then it's usually their own because they wouldn't just gift someone that for free. So using things like that, of course, it's like initial cluing, it's cluing myself in, of course. It's a good lead, but never like definitive. So I really have to kind of go ask around, use Twitter to kind of research by using keywords, using website like archive.org if they delete tweets. So it's really kind of using what I can, pretty much everything I can find at that level. And then, of course, also going into Discords or Telegram chats and just searching keywords that way too. So that's really kind of how it works when it's research that I have to do myself. And these are usually more the people that are the more obvious ones, you could say, or it's also ones to where it's a current event. Like it's, I would say, an influencer, not an influencer, let's say more recently we've seen like a lot of Twitter accounts get compromised. So it's kind of me, I see that happens in real time. So then I go to breadcrumbs, kind of map out the flow of funds and kind of see what wallets are related. Oh, I connect the dots. I see that this related wallet was the one that compromised this other account. So it's kind of just using it that way too. Just disclaimer, for breadcrumbs, I'm an investor, but I was one of the earliest users, and then they recently invited me to become an investor, so that was cool. And then, so for whenever I receive a tip, that's the other way. I didn't really receive any quality tips, per se, until September or October. I think this was more when I was nearing, you know how crypto time is, travels fast, but
Yes.
it was like ages ago. But at least for that, back in September, October, I think I had around 40, 50,000 followers. And that's really when I started getting tips. I guess by that time around, I'd put out probably 5 to 10 solid threads. So people were like, oh, maybe he is actually trying to make a change in the space. So that's when I started to get like actual tips. So it's very tough. Like I receive probably 50 plus DMs a day currently. It's died down a little, just bear market, but it's just me reading those. So I'm sure you guys get this one too. The recent one, it's like they'll send you the seed phrase, and they're like, "Oh, you need to log in," and it's just like if you actually like send each of the wallet, it drains yours. But coming off topic a little, but anyhow, when I receive a tip, it's very hard. Like I need people to just be like straight to the point whenever they send me something, just because of the vast amount of DMs I get. So whenever someone's like very straight to the point with what they have, or what evidence they have, what they need investigated, then typically I'm able to look into it at some point, and kind of it helps skip like some of the initial processes. Like when it's my own research, it's kind of going off what I like thought maybe, whereas for this, it's like I already have a small head start, so it kind of eases the process some. So even though like when I say like the research is, I'm the sole like team member for ZachXBT, I still like, it's a lot of people that are helping out that way as well. And then more recently, I've also noticed it's been quite frustrating, but there's been a lot of accounts that like feed me bad info or they feed me half truths. So it's very frustrating. I found like that's most true, at least when it's like a personal dispute. Like they had a dispute with someone, so they come to me and they're like, oh, ZachXBT can make a tweet, and they'll like pressure them or something like that. So that's been quite frustrating to deal with. So yeah, it just kind of goes back to it. I try and respond to as many people as possible, but then again, I'm just one person.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have some people who almost want to use your platform as a way to just hurt the reputation of others, and that probably adds to the work you're doing in a sense where even if it like potentially the tip still sounds legit, but now you got to go investigate it. And if it turns out to not be legit, I mean, it's just wasting your time too. That's got to be no doubt tough and frustrating to deal with.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, that was the other thing I forgot to mention is just dead ends. It's inevitable. There are just so many dead ends or places I get stuck. So a lot of times I'll have something, I'll map the flows out on breadcrumbs. I'll have the ether scan typed up in a document, but then I get stuck. So it's either or I stop it and keep it kind of in my to-do list for a few months, and then kind of revisit again when I have I'm a little less stressed. But yeah, that can be definitely quite frustrating, and there's definitely tons of scenarios where that's happened. And even right now, I have a running list of probably 50, 100 plus scams to look into.
Wow. Are you surprised at all by the growth, the success you've had really in regards to the number of followers and people tuning into your detective work and the things you've uncovered?
Oh yes, 100%. I think early September, October was also when I've had a lot of different media organizations reach out just from the mainstream media. And that was kind of interesting just because I'd never really had to deal with that prior. So it's kind of cool to catch eyes that way and see some of my work published there and reach kind of a different audience. So that's definitely been kind of cool, but at the same time, it's different. It's difficult to navigate as well, just because sometimes they can be a bit biased. So I just need to make sure that I do have my best intentions in mind.
Yeah, it's clearly something that, I mean, you don't grow to 270,000 Twitter followers by accident. I mean, you're clearly providing something in the space that is much needed, and you're calling out those individuals. There's so many things that you mentioned there, Zach, that we want to dive into a little bit deeper. The first one, I think, is the obvious question of, you're calling out whatever category, whether it's a company, whether it's a business, whether it's an individual, some of these influencers, you're publicly putting their name out there. So for you, have you received any threats, or obviously you're protecting your identity, but what is the level of danger you've experienced since you've got involved in this work?
Yeah, definitely. So I've had a number. I really amped up at the same time when my account really started to blow up in October-ish, maybe November as well. That's when I first started getting threats. At first, I was kind of just freaked out just because I'm like, who says that? It's kind of a really messed up thing to say. And then people will just death threats or lawsuit threats. That's the typical one. But I really just started to ignore it because at the same time, most of the people in this space are just trolls and don't actually they'll say something, but they'll never actually follow through with whatever, just because it's a lot of work. Like a lawsuit, that's very time consuming, very costly. It's going to take years. So they try and intimidate me that way, but it's never really kind of followed through with it. And then also just with death threats, it's same thing. It's messed up, but at the same time, it's hard to tell if it's credible, and it's usually not.
Of all your followers, let's go to a lighter note here. Who is your favorite? Who are you most stoked to have following you? You got 270,000+ followers. Is there one in particular that you're yeah, I got that person following my account?
Yeah. So you're right, I have a decent bit. So it's just kind of processing. I think I follow around 1,500 people currently. I would say of course, I love Inverse Bra. I'm sure you guys have seen him on Twitter. People at Inverse Bra. Definitely one of my favorite accounts just because it kind of highlights everything going on crypto Twitter. And I think just from a trader standpoint, GCR, you guys familiar with him?
Yep.
Yeah, just amazing trader. He's always very fascinating to just hear how he thinks when he tweets out stuff, or the Luna bet was very ballsy. And then he's also publicly had giant shorts on projects where they've worked out. So it's interesting to see just a trader that's actually not LARPing, because I'm sure you guys know on Twitter, a lot of people talk out of their head. So it's
everyone's
it's
a
nice
trader.
To see something like that. Yeah, it's very refreshing.
Yeah.
So I'd say those are probably two notable ones. And
Nice.
of course, also CL. He's the Cat Tubby Cat. the space astronaut suit. He's been awesome as well, trader. Really started to introduce me to people and was supporting me very early on. So it was great that just someone like that's able to help me navigate kind of the CT.
In terms of people following you who maybe, they've got that blue check mark, that blue verification, is there anyone who's like, I don't know, celebrity, athlete, somebody who you like logged into one day and you're like, holy shit, this person is following me. I never would have guessed that.
Yeah, so I've tried to notice. So typically when I gain followers, it's like when I put out a thread. So it's never never actually see it. So like when I put out a thread, it's typically I gain 500, 2,000 followers for that thread. That's in a span of 24 hours. And then after that, typically I gain 100, 200 followers a day. It's way more manageable when it's that. But typically when I put out that thread, it's very, very hard to kind of see who's following me. I have noticed some. I think Knife Party follows me. They're like a EDM duo back in more popular, of course, in the early 2010s. And then I had a lot of streamers follow me, just video game. That's kind of been a cool crossover to see, like Liquid 72 Hours, large streamer. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Nice. And what would you say? I mean, this is obviously, there's a lot of ups and no doubt downs that come with what you're doing. What would you say the most rewarding part of your work has been so far?
Yeah, I'd say that's a good question. So the most rewarding, I would say it's when I'm able to actually like recover funds for people. I've had 2 different instances for OX Function. I believe that's his handle, but I was able to help him recover. I think it's $50,000 roughly, $75,000. Typically what happened is his wallet got hacked. He lost all his NFTs. They bridged it over from Wormhole to Ethereum. Then they sent it in a Tornado. They were dumb though. They didn't really use Tornado properly. So I was able to kind of track it through that. And they sent it to a service. And I was able to alert that service before they were actually processed that transaction. So service was able to help that. And then we worked with the police as well. So they were able to send that report over to the exchange. And after a few weeks, he was actually able to access those funds again. So I think it's very much instances like that where I'm able to actually it's something tangible I can see make a difference. And then of course it's just like when I guess random DMs, like let's say I bring attention to something that maybe they've there's a lot of like small users, like they're feeling their voices aren't heard about maybe a project being a scam or something sketchy going on. So when I'm able to bring attention to that, I feel like that's very rewarding as well, just because of the fact they might not have been able to have been heard before that.
In terms of, so you have your eth.eth address in your Twitter profile. So, you help out somebody like that. You save them all of these sorts of funds. Have you also been receiving some funds for your work? Like, is that a common thing where all of a sudden your ETH address will have somebody sending you ETH through it?
Yeah. So I first put so I did not accept donations until January of this year. So for a good 6 months, I had a lot of people request like, hey, do you need donations? At first I was worried it would compromise my work, but like over time it's been more so, hey, I need to make money somehow. Like the function, like I have to pay people for some of the graphics I have made, and editors sometimes. So it's stuff like that where I need money to be able to function. And if I'm putting all my time in this, not trading, it's smart to just accept tips from a ENS address where everyone can see what's being sent to it. So when I first opened up that address, I got a huge fluctuation of donations in. And then I do kind of Gitcoin as well. Are you guys familiar with that platform?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gitcoin's great. Each matching round, I kind of participate in that. And then with like the matching, the quadratic funding, you get a huge amount. Like people would say I get like 5,000 donations from 2,000 people. Typically they'll like double that just because of their quadratic funding. So it's a very cool platform of like just shows how generous the crypto space is. Like that's one thing too. People like to say like, oh, you're anti-crypto. No, I'm all for crypto. I just want to weed the bad out of the space.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the way you're approaching it, to be honest, is there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, accepting donations from anywhere, that's fine. Obviously, I mean, you wouldn't do this if it was a situation where somebody was messaging you specifically being like, hey, don't talk about this like project or something. And then like, if you don't, I'll send you, like, that's the only time I could see it being like any sort of sketchy, but just having your address there and people can send it freely, it doesn't going to change the work that you're doing. So I think it makes complete sense the way you've gone about it. One of the questions I wanted to ask though is, you know, where do you see, and this is a tough question, but like, where do you see that ethical line being? So for a little bit of context, Alf and I, we talk about this from time to time because we do talk about NFT projects specifically. We have certain artists on, and there have been times where we will own NFTs prior to that guest coming out and that kind of thing. And we do from time to time flip these things. However, I think like what we do is our best is in every episode, we do mention when we have that NFT. We make that very clear. We also, in the footnotes of every episode, say that we may hold coins or NFTs of all of these projects. And then the other thing is it's not like we're trying to time anything. First off, our audience isn't big enough to make a difference regardless. But, you know, it wouldn't be a matter of like episode comes out and then we're going to dump or something. We try to, you know, have some level of time if we are doing any sort of flipping or anything along those lines. But the question to you, Zach, is just like, what do you see as kind of the ethical responsibility of someone in the space who's maybe a creator or an influencer or really anyone in terms of making sure that they're not misdirecting people?
Yes, definitely. So I think the first thing is just stating your position. Like earlier during this podcast episode, I've said I'm an investor in breadcrumbs, and like I think you just like whenever you have a position or something, or let's say I'm an investor in something, you need to actually use it. I think a lot of time in the space we see examples where people will just chill it just because they want to make a bag and they don't actually even use the product. So like at least when you're an investor, you need to disclose your relationship and state very clearly why you're invested and why you believe in it. And then same thing with your holdings. You don't need to like go all out explaining why in your thesis, but at least just share you hold some, just because people's opinions might be swayed just because of listening to your audience. And then also for stuff, I think another one is referral links. Is not being like misleading with them, because a lot of times we'll have like people acting like they just found something. In reality, like the ref link, they make money off that, off your financial gain or loss.
Ulf, do you realize our audience has been either watching or listening to this episode for 20 minutes?
20 minutes? No, they should probably subscribe.
Yeah, they should subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you comment and turn on notifications. And if you're listening to this podcast, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and a review.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. So go check out the episode description. You can find all that information below. And we have an update on the NFT, don't we?
That's right. We didn't previously mention this, but this NFT for OG supporter is a one of one. There will only be one of this kind ever minted, and we have a few surprises for the person who purchases it. The link is in the episode description.
And back to the episode. So Zach, you've mentioned a lot of the ways you find scams and rug pulls and all of these different things. But what's some specific advice you could give to the everyday, whether they're new to crypto, everyday user, or even those who are maybe more familiar? Are there some precautions or steps or just general, things that people should be looking out for or doing to protect themselves from rug pulls and scams and so on?
No, yeah, 100%. So I think the first thing is you need to educate yourself. As cliche as that is, like the space is very different from most other stuff out there. So you really need to understand the terminology and just the tech behind it. A lot of people will just like ape in and then not actually do any research. Like we make fun of it as a meme, but there's so many people that actually do that. So you need to educate yourself by going to like free resources like Finematics, great YouTube channel. Love their demonstrations for DeFi stuff. And then there's resources like Pinnacle, great way to learn as well, free website. So you there's so much information out there that's free that you can use. So that's like the first thing I'd say. And then the second thing is just like people believe too much of what others say. And you really need to kind of think for yourself and kind of maybe listen to this, what people think about a topic, but take input from a few different others, and then kind of formulate your like final thoughts on a subject or something like that. And then also too, it's just people like anything, like a project over promises. Like it's not possible what they're saying. You need to use common sense. Like we've seen so many projects where they'll promise like an insanely high APR, but you really need to understand where that yield's coming from. So that's like another thing is if it's too good to be true, it probably is. You need to figure out how it works and why that is.
In terms of what you're doing, so we talked about the danger that perhaps you're putting yourself in terms of, you know, others being like threatening you and that kind of thing, who you call out. But there's another danger in the sense of you've got to be pretty confident. And again, this isn't saying that you're not, because we believe that you've built your reputation on doing just that. But, you know, being put in a space where you're going to call out an individual and have a full thread about them, you've almost got to be 100% certain at that point in time, because if for some reason something was incorrect, I mean, once that's out there, we know it's like guilty by association, and that could really damage somebody's reputation, whether that's an individual or a company or anything like that. And so what kind of ethical boundaries do you set for yourself, or how do you really, really make sure, or where's that line before you post a thread versus something that you're working on?
Yes. So there's like a couple of different boxes I have kind of to check for me to actually post something. First, I have to have the Etherscan links. Like I need to find on-chain proof and then verify that's accurate, whether that's via screenshots, private messages. Like I need to be able to validate this information from a plethora of different places. So I think that's like the main thing is if I post something, I'm not saying sources and then not naming those sources. I'm showing that screenshot where it was said, who said it, that time, the transactions that were done. So I'm giving you as much information as possible so they can actually so you can make an educated opinion. Whereas a lot of others I've seen where they fault at least is they call someone out and they're not actually showing any evidence, and they're just kind of talking out of their head, like out of their ass. So it's very nice.
You can swear on this show, dude. Like, go for it.
Yeah, wasn't sure. But anyhow, yeah, they talk out of their ass, and it's kind of frustrating to see because it does give people like myself a bad rep when they don't give appropriate, like they don't do their research.
Now, we're in a bear market right now, clearly, and when there are bull runs, it's my assumption that scamming is probably, much more frequent than it is during a bear market in times like right now. You would know this much better than I. Is that the truth? Do you find that there is less scams and less rug pulls and things like that happening during this time versus when we're in a bull run?
Definitely would say so. Like from meme coins, less meme coins like blow up and stuff because there's less dumb money kind of going around. Everyone's kind of already sold off. When we saw like everyone get liquidated, so there's of course less money going around. So I would say it's definitely died off. But I imagine it'll ramp up again soon. And there's just a lot of catch up too. Like a lot of stuff I'm doing now because my list has been so long for months and months. I'll have content for the next year or so just because there's so much and that happens.
So what needs to change, do you think? Like from does there need to be more regulation? Like how does this get better other than just telling people, be really careful, look out for these signs, educate yourself? Like in your mind, is that it? Like, is that the solution? And this is just a space where you've got to be extra careful? Or how do you feel that this problem can get better?
Yeah, at first I think people need to take responsibility. Like at a certain point, after people have been warned so many times about the same thing, there's only so much you can do. So that's kind of like the first thing I'd say for that. And the other thing is just making awareness about it. Sometimes if an individual rogues a project and then get caught, calling them out and stuff can kind of make that change. Like we have seen projects either come back or it's kind of the meme now is if I tweet about a project, it will kind of revive it. because the founder is like kind of freaking out that they've been kind of on vacation posting pics in a club in somewhere like that. And yeah, that's kind of like the meme at least. And then the last thing is kind of inevitable. I would like self-policing, at least in this community, to work. Like that's what everyone wants to happen. But let's be real, there's very few people that actually like take ownership for stuff that goes on, whether it's intentional or not. So inevitable, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's just going to happen. It's just there are already be like law enforcement kind of stepping in and stuff. Like I'm not a fan, of course, always. Sometimes the individual deserves it. Sometimes they're being made an example of. I don't really have kind of mixed feelings on it, but it's just inevitable and something that we're kind of seeing happen now.
What's your plans for the future? I mean, you've been building up this follower base. You've been getting, let's probably better at, your sleuthing and your research. And where do you go from here?
Yeah. So I think that's a good question. So I think it's trying to legitimatize as much as possible. Like over the past year, if you look at my first thread or one of my first few threads versus now, the quality of work that I've put out has tremendously changed, at least with like being more professional instead of being kind of sarcastic or joking in the past. Like I like to be straight to the point with facts now. So it's kind of that growing that way. And then, of course, just using better tools, getting access to ones, hopefully getting access to tools like chain analysis or TRM or something. I'm advising chain abuse right now. So that's kind of cool. It was created by TRM. So it's kind of like you report an address for pretty much any chain, file a report, what happened, individual. Then they have like a giant database. And then soon we're opening the API. So you'll be able to use that data yourself. So it's very cool to kind of see how different hacks are related. Or I guess for exchanges, they can use this data to kind of see if an address is linked to a scam.
In your regular life, IRL, what is your process like? Because I mean, it just strikes me as it would be a fascinating concept that, you know, you have this massive audience on Twitter, people who are relying on your detective work, your sleuthing, and then you've got your family, your friends, everything like that. I mean, we talked a little bit about how you protect your identity in, you know, interviews such as this, but just in real life, like, do you have to keep what you're doing pretty tight knit, or what does your regular life look like?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this kind of just a brief overview, but it's honestly just I'm like I think it's like it's not just me though. There's so many like anods in the space or people that like kind of make fun of crypto trading, crypto traders, or crypto as an industry as a whole. I mean, I don't blame them after all these like billion-dollar funds we saw blow up, and lenders as well. I mean, it did kind of turn into a joke after that, but just in general, I would say like if you're saying you're crypto, people like think you're like a Ponzi person or something. So I think I just like you're in tech or something like that. It's very like brief, or like you're an angel investor or something like that. There's really not much you can say otherwise. And a lot of people won't understand it regardless either. So it's just kind of being very like just general like with what you do. And it's not just me having this problem. I know many people like on Twitter kind of talk about how do you explain what you do to your friends and family. They're like, I click buttons and buy JPEGs and I make tens of thousands of dollars. Like, there's no really way to appropriately explain it. So I think it's a difficult conversation to have with anyone.
Yeah, often my friends don't really know what we do, even though we've told them multiple times about the podcast and that kind of thing.
They get the podcast part, but they don't really get what we're talking about. But I'm curious, to step aside from, a great majority of what we've been discussing here. You have mentioned that you have trading experience, and obviously a big reason a lot of people are in this space, most people, are for the financial aspects of crypto. And, we had a big bull run And now we've moved into this bear market. I'm curious just to get your thoughts as someone from that perspective of things. What are your thoughts on the bull run we recently had, where we're at now in this bear market? Do you think a recovery is, in the short-term future? Do you think it's far away? What are your thoughts on the space from that side of things?
Yeah, so I really haven't taken a trade since probably last summer, last June, July, to maybe September, October. Like those are probably, I maybe took one or two, but even then it's like I'm very dedicated to this. So I'd say like half the bull run, I was pretty much MIA doing this. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting to see all the different projects kind of blow up that you wouldn't think. Like you had like all the high like APR, APY forks that were offering like thousands of percent. You saw those kind of blow up. You saw like the algorithmic stable coins as well. It's just kind of interesting seeing all the mechanisms play out that like blew up. Like we saw launch pads, and then kind of, yeah, just all that stuff is kind of interesting to see kind of how they rose up. Oh yeah, same with meme coins. Like it was crazy seeing some of those like mention like Elon's name and then it would shoot up. Like we saw some of those getting like top 25. Like we saw like Sheeb run up to top 25 market cap, and then there's others in the top 100. And it's like, how do these get here? So it's very interesting to kind of see that play. I don't think really, not many people, no one really like anticipated they would become that mainstream. So that's kind of fascinating. But for now, at least, I feel like it's pretty like just bearish. Don't really like see any. It's very tough to trade in this environment, and I don't think many people should, unless if you really know what you're doing. It's better just sit around and maybe like dollar cost average in over time.
Yeah, makes sense. And Zach, we're almost at the end where we're going to ask you the same three questions that we ask every single guest on Show Me the Crypto. But before we do that, I want to ask you another question that we've been asking a lot of guests more recently. And I think that's because we gear our show to hopefully those who are somewhat new to the space, trying to educate themselves, learn more about it. And for people who are experiencing their first crypto winter, their first bear market, what is your advice in terms of, maybe they just saw this big run up in price and now they're experiencing, their first, everything just fell. Their portfolio went down maybe 80, 90%, who knows what it was. But what's your advice to people of why maybe they should stick around during this difficult time?
Because of the fact that it can be very rewarding in the future. Like we've seen past bull runs, if we do get another one, then it's going to be insane again. Of course, like I think we've seen like VC funding go insane too. Even throughout this, like how the bear market started, we've seen like funds raise hundreds of millions and even $1 billion funds. So that's kind of been interesting to see. It's like, where's that money even going to go? Like a lot of the narratives have already played out. So it's going to be interesting from that perspective. So I think the best thing is just to really get active on Twitter, use like free sources like there's Darren Law. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but no. He has the Daily Ape. It's like a free newsletter on Telegram once a day. He'll post that. Great resource to kind of see what all happened that day. Like if I'm not as active for a day, I always read that just because it's a great resource. So it's really just staying up to date with like what the trends, where the best builders are, and then really also just like making friends. Like the space is so big, it's giant. It's small, but like very large at the same time. So you can't really focus on everything. So it's best to kind of make friends, kind of divvy up the work, and just kind of excel that way.
Awesome. Well, Zach, this has been a great conversation. As I mentioned, we ask every guest the same three questions. It's a segment we call You Had Me at Crypto, and Ulf is going to ask you those questions.
All right, Zach, you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Number one, who is your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
Inverse Bra.
Inverse Bra. Nice. All right. Second question, what will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now?
That's a long time looking out. I hope it's above 100,000. That would be very nice. 100,000 to a million if we're lucky. But I'm I have no idea. The space changes so fast, and we could always just go to zero. So realistically, it might go to zero, but if we're lucky, the music won't stop.
I'll tell you what, no one has any idea. That's the fun of the question. Also, you gave us 100,000 to 1,000,000 to 0.
Yeah.
So we need a better
It's more
answer than
ranges.
that. Give us one number. Give us a Hail Mary.
I'll say 100,000.
100,000. All right, we'll take it. Question 3. What is the most underrated coin or project in all of crypto?
I'm really not investing much. I would say I really like.
It can also
Nansen
be.
Gate.
Oh, sorry to cut you off there, Zach. I was just gonna say it can also be. If you don't want to like narrow down on a specific project, you can talk about like a sector or something. As an example, you could say DeFi or something. So we just don't want to pigeonhole you to feel like you have to call out a particular project.
And it doesn't
or you
have to
can.
be investment related. It could be any project, NFT related, or something just really cool that's being developed.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about a few analytics tools I use.
Sure.
We have Parsec, free trial, 7-day trial, great for analyzing NFTs, spotting trends. And of course, we have Nansen. There are a couple different chains now. Great way to kind of check on chain and notice things that stick out. Alex is great. And then we also have OX Check. I kind of use that to track wallets, get notifications real time. Bunch of different blockchains. I have way too many wallets on there, and phones constantly always pinging. Then of course Etherscan, amazing free tool. Label addresses. Love using that on all the different chains they're available on. And DeFi Llama as well. Love what OX Not Gonna Make It is doing there. They've done a great job with just having a free resource for everything DeFi related.
Nice.
Awesome.
We just got like 6 great underrated projects. So perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Well, Zach, we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. We understand that it's not an easy thing for you to appear on podcasts. You've got to kind of put yourself out there a little bit. But obviously, we've taken the steps to protect your identity and whatnot. But thank you so much for joining Ulf and I on this episode of Show Me the Crypto.
No, I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.